we'll move on to question number 3. How can we ensure planning contributions are fairly balanced between national, regional, sub-regional and local infrastructure, either in the context of voluntary pooling of planning obligations or if a community infrastructure levy were to be introduced? I think this is touching on some of the issues that we've already talked about. How on earth can the Council balance its priorities between those demands that are inevitably going to be made on it at a regional and sub-regional level and some of our local priorities that we have?
And you can challenge the question.
Thank you. Richard Hillibrand, Derwent, London. I think that we all probably accept that Crossrail's a wonderful thing and that the community benefits within Westminster are also a wonderful thing. But the problem is that development has a value and it's not a bottomless pit. And particularly in these times, striking that fair balance, as this question predicates, is going to be quite difficult. And it needs to be either managed on a case-by-case basis or in terms of the overall economic climate. Otherwise, there will be no development and there will be no contributions to strike a balance between worthwhile causes.
In terms of that, I mean, is there any suggestion that we should sacrifice one for the other, that one is more important than the other? I mean, certainly I agree, and particularly in the current economic climate, it may not be possible to pay for all of the things that you may seek. And in terms of the Council negotiating those planning obligations, is there any particular comment anyone wants to make about the weight we should give our local considerations as opposed to the regional considerations or vice versa? I mean, given that it's not an endless pool of money.
Or, what would help you make those arguments?
I was just thinking that, with that, the different levels of infrastructure you're talking about in that question, that's quite a lot of work to actually, look at the capacity of development coming forward, look at what the impact that's going to be, and then trying to cost that. So I would have thought at a local level you've probably got to, really just prioritise, perhaps in terms of what are the kind of the big impact items, and then that would actually assist in trying to balance against the national, regional and sub-regional items as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Two things. I think, first of all, just in answering Councillor Moss's direct question, I think establishing the priorities in practice at the pre-application stage is crucial. I think on an individual case basis, to try and help sort that out would be very useful. But I also think there's a question as to whether or not Westminster sees itself as becoming a charging authority or not under the SIL proposals. If you are going to, clearly you'll have to prepare an infrastructure plan and you'll have to prepare charging schedules. Now, to undertake that exercise is quite significant. And I suppose the question is, if you expected to do that in the future, the way in which you do that might be a way in which you think about doing it now, whereas if you decide you don't intend to become a charging authority in that debate, then maybe you leave it another way. So I think there's the kind of short-term debate, which almost then leads quite quickly onto a much longer-term debate.
Just to inform the audience, the City Council certainly hasn't made a decision as to whether to become a charging regime, and until someone sees some more substantive information from government, I think any authority could be unwise to take a decision at the moment. What we have done, however, because we think it's a prudent first step, is on our own cognizance, is started work on an infrastructure plan to look at what a community infrastructure levy means. And we've done this in a rather different way than we might usually do. One is to assess what the infrastructure issues for Westminster might be. The other one is to do it in conjunction with our colleagues in other central London boroughs, and we would include in that the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, Camden, Lambeth, Southwark, Islington and the City of London. That's because quite a lot of the way anyone lives or works in central London is influenced by things that are outside our geographical territorial boundaries, and we need to have an understanding at that level as well. So we're cooperating with the adjacent boroughs, we're doing our own work. We hope when we see the information from government later this year, that will put us in a position to advise members of the risks and opportunities. It will also do something else. It's self-evident the Mayor will become a charging regime. And we want to know what the Mayor thinks he's going to be doing with various monies, and we want to make sure that the issues that affect all of you are not left off of his shopping list, or at least his shopping list is influenced by the individual boroughs and the collective known as the Central London Forward boroughs putting their stamp on these quite critical issues, because we do take very seriously who is expected to pay for these things and how they're expected to be managed and delivered. And we'd like an educated debate about some real priorities and not a lot of rather vacuous comments about nice-to-have issues.
Does anyone want to make any further comments following on from Graham's explanation? Okay, great.